3 years ago, we have a problem and we got sued. Several families after a vehicle of the company crashed with another 9 vehicles. We got no insurance. So I was not worried about losing my house, my personal cars, or anything like that because they were suing the business. But the business had real estate. The business has another vehicles, have equipment, has everything that could go away because you have no insurance. You have to protect this. Some assets can be out of it. So now I have an LLC with a lot of intellectual property. Now I have an LLC with real estate. Now I have LLC with these other things. In order to structure right things, I think it's very important to learn about that.
Or at least just be aware that there are those options.
Yep.
You didn't even know an LLC was an option at the beginning, right?
Exactly.
Buenos días a todos desde la ciudad de Monterrey, Nuevo León. Estoy con mi socio y amigo Edmundo Treviño en este episodio de Comprando América y hoy tenemos como invitados a Abrir y Destiny Bounce, expertos de nuestro programa, abogadas en propiedad intelectual, corporativo, what else?
What else is corporate and intellectual property?
Básicamente abogadas corporativas que dominan el área contractual y de propiedad intelectual. Edmundo, ¿te gustaría arrancar la transición de idioma de este episodio?
Lo primero es que este episodio será principalmente en inglés, porque nos interesa mucho obviamente la opinión cómoda y confiable de nuestras bellas abogadas, que son además muy inteligentes y que debo decir que nos están ayudando a organizar pues ya los últimos meses algunas empresas de creación, que de hecho las presentamos aquí en nuestra cumbre de emprendimiento en Monterrey. Y bueno, queremos aprovechar para hacer un recap de las preguntas más frecuentes que tuvimos. Ellas me decían, no habíamos estado nunca en un evento en el que nos hicieran tantas preguntas, lo cual demuestra que hay muchísimo interés por hacer negocio en Estados Unidos. Entonces, bueno, la entrevista será obviamente en inglés y de cualquier manera, si tienes alguna duda de alguna pregunta, pues mándanos en los comentarios y nosotros se las hacemos llegar y obviamente la traduciremos para ti. Así es que, thank you very much, Destiny. Thank you, Abrir, to be here in Monterrey. First of anything, to trust on the project that we have.
No.
And it's something so crazy.
Yeah.
And immediately I remember the call that we had and you immediately said, yes, I'll go and we'll go. And
you know.
and I guess I think everybody was excited to have you here and so many questions. So what are your thoughts first of what it just happened a couple of days ago, and then we'll go on the questions.
I love that we're starting with that because there was such excitement from that event. Like when you first asked me, I knew that I wanted to help. But when I actually got here and people were asking all of the questions that they did, I did not even understand the depth of the need for this and that we can be a part of something that's so big and amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the engagement in the event was really exciting. More? Closer? Can you hear me? I thought the engagement in the event was really exciting. People were there for a purpose and they were very excited to hear every speaker. And that makes you feel a lot of support while you're presenting when you know that people are here for a reason and want to hear from you. So, I don't know, it made us just fill us with a lot of excitement for business between Mexico and the US.
No, absolutely. So for us, me and Aubrey, like businesses, local businesses, family-owned businesses, like they are our heart. And you guys in Mexico do it the best. I'm not even kidding. Like I have just never, I feel like it's at another level of how you guys truly like encompass the whole thing. Into even the investments or talking about business ventures and all that. So.
Yeah. Debo decir que la cumbre tuvimos, además de ellas, a Palacios como contador, hablando de tema fiscal, explicando muchas dudas de esto, yo hablando inclusive hasta de crédito, no solamente la oportunidad del real estate, que es muy sexy. Estuvimos también con Tomás Reséndez, abogado de migración, que recibió 74,000 preguntas y que también estaba feliz por contestarlas. Y la verdad es que todos los asistentes nos felicitaron por la increíble calidad que teníamos en los speakers. Tremendous quality speakers. Everybody was really congratulated us to say, hey, we love every single speaker. It was not one that was not like in a super high quality, you know, so super excited. Let's start with some questions that the people had. So we can do a few because there were so many, but the one that got me and actually was at the very end, and Destiny said the answer was, I was expecting this question since so many hours ago, and somebody did it right at the end. And he asked, why should I open a company in Delaware? Why Delaware?
Yes, and it was more of a question of like, where should I open, right? Like, what state? How do I choose a state? Because so many companies, I think me and Diego were actually talking about this earlier, that there are so many business owners that believe that where you open up your company is going to make or break you. And that used to be a thing. Not to get too much into complication, but back in the day in the United States, the only option until recently was just like what's called a C corporation, a corporation. So it's more complicated. You have a board of directors, you have shareholders. More recently in America, they started with the LLC, which is a more simple version, but still gives you that personal asset protection. And when I'm talking about personal assets, we're talking about your bank account, your car, your house, those things that you love and protect for you. So really, to answer that question of what state to choose, majority of the time, it's really not going to matter. You just want to choose a state that you are going to be, most of the time it's going to be the state where you're going to be doing business in and has business-friendly laws. So I bet a lot of your viewers, for instance, they're going to be investors from Mexico to Texas, probably. That's probably the majority of them. Mm-hmm. Texas is a business-friendly state. And if they're going to Texas, that's probably the state they should choose. So that's really it. With Delaware, it's also pretty business-friendly, but it's a lot more to file there than it is in Texas. So if you really are having a lot of questions about it, or you're going to have a complicated situation, you know, you're coming out with a lot of partners, that may be a time when you would go and ask a professional.
Mm-hmm. And actually, when people ask me about it, I normally, my answer is, do you know what is Delaware?
Right.
Nobody knows. It's very hard to answer. Tell me a city of that state. I mean, nobody knows. And do you know?
You freak out.
I did. I was like, Dover. Yeah.
Okay, but what is who has been in Dover? I said, why should you pick something that you don't even know where it is? And I think, as you said, my answer is, just do it wherever you're going to operate. If you're going to have a physical address, a physical warehouse, office, whatever in Texas, let's do it in Texas. And even in California, if you're going to operate in California, you have very possible to do it in California because it's going to make things simpler for you. If it's a small business. And the thing is that what I read is that Delaware is more like for a startup and stuff like that. And I say, who has a startup? Very little people. I mean, it's not the majority. So
you, but
kind of. But and it didn't make sense to go there.
Yeah.
So
no, it didn't.
So another very common question was, I know people have the belief or they understand that they can own things under their name, but you were insisting on why they should open a company so that the company can own stuff. And by stuff, I mean assets, companies, real estate in some scenarios, even cars. So why should they open a company that holds the assets and not them under their name if they can do that?
So that's a little bit more of a complicated question because you're going past even, do we just need an LLC or a corporation, right? So sometimes we want to make sure that assets get transferred appropriately, like if somebody died, unfortunately. So one of the questions that we got was, how do I get, like if I passed away, how can I get my business to go to my kids easily? Well, that's when you may want to think about like a trust or another holding company or something where you own that with your kids or something. If they're younger, that's where a trust would come in. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
I think I have a little to add. Why we would recommend it, or in situations in where we would recommend it, would be you are doing business with the real estate you own, so you're renting the house and you want to protect in the case of a lawsuit, which is always worst case scenario, but that's where we live and work. If you are sued because of something that occurred with that property, you want to make sure that the person who sues you cannot take your personal assets and your car and your house and your savings. So that's why we say it's can be good to own certain assets in different companies so that those assets don't get mixed together, and that you can protect different parts of them in the event of a lawsuit.
No, very good. Yeah, now, very good. Very good addition. So let's think about if we have an investor situation where they've invested in a bunch of properties, but they also manage it, we may want to just have one company that's the property management company, because they'll be the face of dealing with the client, the tenant or whatever. So that if there was a lawsuit, they would only be able to sue that company that doesn't have the assets. And that way they still can't get to you personally, but then they also can't get to the rest of your property. Does that kind of answer the question of the investment?
Yeah, and another thing, during the event, we talked too much about lawsuits. And it seems like, they're going to sue me the minute I arrive. It's not like that, but at the same time, shit happens. And sorry for my French, but it happens. And it has happened to me like 3 times in 22 years, but eventually it could happen. But none of the times that I got sued, I was prepared. So I always said, I don't want you to do the same mistakes I made. So I was thinking I was having protection, but I wasn't, because I didn't have the right advice. And unfortunately, in our culture in Mexico, we don't really like lawyers. We prefer to avoid paying a lawyer, and it's actually an investment. I mean, after losing a lot of money on the way, and thanks God, all the lawsuits having resolved in a friendly manner.
Yep.
It's been a lot of money anyway, and a lot of stress, the mental. How can I say the mental effect, the how it drains your energy to be thinking on that instead of how I make my business grow. Even in a lawsuit, you don't want to grow your business because you just feel like you're going to lose more, so it's hard. So we don't want to make it pessimistic, but it happens. So in case it happens, we gotta be prepared. That's the main reason.
So I think one thing, our mission at Bounce Hall has been since I opened the firm is for businesses to be proactive in their legal instead of reactive. Because reactivity, let's just say it's not even legal. Reactivity on any part of your business is more expensive, right?
All the time.
Because you are having to clean it up. You're having to go back and figure out what happened. So it kind of does confuse me why people think, well, I just won't spend it on the legal, when I'm like, but you would be proactive in probably, your books. You'd probably be proactive in who you're hiring, right? Like, you're not just going to hire somebody without interviewing them, right? So that's where I kind of come from in on the proactivity. And I know that nobody thinks they're going to get sued, but the statistics, at least in America, really are. If you looked on your left and your right side, probably at least one, if not 2 of you will get sued within the lifespan of your business. It's quite high, but we don't need to be pessimistic, because we, as business owners, we are going to take some risks. That's part of it.
Exactly.
It's just about, trying to do our best to avoid them.
Exactly. Now, I have a question. You said Texas is a business-friendly state. Okay, give me 5 business-friendly states that you like.
Well,
and give me 5 or 3 unfriendly states, because nobody talks about those. Yeah, that's.
I would consider Texas. I would consider Missouri a business-friendly state. Delaware. We've got 2 more.
Washington mostly.
Wyoming. Depending on the type of business, but it's not necessary. But it is known to be a business-friendly state.
A lot of people in South America likes Miami so much. Everybody thinks on doing business in Miami. I don't like Miami to do business. I'm anti-Miami for business.
Like they're fine. And a lot of times what we talked about quite a bit was that complicated like operating agreement and bylaws. There are a lot you can do in those agreements because you write these kind of like guidelines essentially for your business that are high level of how it operates. That's your bylaws, your agreement. In there, you can write a lot of stuff that also makes your business friendly if it ever crosses.
Exactly.
Yeah, the kind of
unfriendly states.
Well, I was going to say the barrier between unfriendly states and friendly states has kind of gone away because you can use your operating agreement and bylaws as contracts to protect you. Kansas is just difficult to work with the Secretary of State sometimes.
That's a side note.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would classify them necessarily unfriendly, but they're unfriendly to me sometimes.
And what about California? How would you catalog California?
To be honest, California is probably neutral in my mind too. It doesn't raise a whole bunch of like great things where I would say, oh, go to California if you aren't doing business there. It's nothing that.
I can't think of. Oh no. Maybe we just have not experienced an unfriendly state.
Before I went out on my own, I was working in a law firm and I was working in-house at one of the largest companies in the world, Walmart. And I had several territories. Actually, that was one of them. And I didn't find that to be one way or the other. Like there's a lot of lawsuits in California as it is. So you do want to think about that too, where you're going to start. California is pretty litigious, meaning they are much more likely just to file lawsuits. The attorneys there are very aggressive.
In my mind, an unfriendly state would be one that is litigious, because there are a lot of situations. We were talking about how, so yes, New York, California, Florida are known for having aggressive legal practices. And you were talking about lawsuits are very common against businesses, and they are, but you mentioned attorneys can often settle them early on or just negotiate early on. And you see that happen in a lot of the states that we discussed as being business friendly. You can pick up the phone, an attorney can talk to another attorney and figure out how to make a lawsuit go away before it becomes a really big deal. So I don't want that to scare people away, I guess.
No, and
opening
whoever says that some state in the United States is difficult to do business, they haven't been in Mexico and dealing with the with the government here. So to open a business, I opened a business last year, and it took us like 3 months or 4 months maybe to get it registered, get the IAN number, the tax ID, and to open the bank account. The banks make you feel like they are making you a big favor. It's impossible. I mean, it takes forever. And they have to go and check your physical address. They have to take pictures. They have to send their live location. And they have to do so many things. Like, they make you think like you're doing a bad thing, you know? So to do business in Mexico is rough. It's not that easy. And I think you don't see that in the US. I mean, you can open companies very quick. I mean, even by yourself. And I mean, there's so many changes. But anyway, again, I think we gotta invest in a lawyer I mean, a good attorney to help you organize correctly. And the other thing that you mentioned is insurance. I mean, it's not only to put an LLC and that's it, which is another question that people had, and I've been having it always in my business life. Why an LLC? I actually started with a C corporation when I arrived to the US, and I've been more like leaning towards C corporations than LLCs. I mean, I just discovered LLCs like 3 or 4 years ago, and I've been 22 in the States. So why should I pick an LLC or a C corporation? Or what things can you check in order to decide what do you need?
So LLC, C corporation, those are the main two types that you're going to see in America, right? There's also,
and especially for foreigners, because I mean, if you're from Mexico, you cannot open a S corporation because you're not a resident. So Those are the two that we have
Those
available.
are really the ones that are available. And you probably chose a C corporation too, because I bet you that's because somebody told you that. Maybe not an attorney though.
Yeah, somebody just opened it for us. I mean, we said, okay, I want to open a business. Okay, I'll do it for you. Boom. And it was a C corporation. Okay, bingo.
Because as I was saying, like as I mentioned earlier, LLCs are such a newer creature that a lot of people that have been in business for 20, 30, 40 years, they still think a C corporation is the only route to go because that was the only option they had. So LLC, C corporation, main differences though. LLC, all right, a C corporation is going to be a little more complex. So you're going to have formalities. You're going to have to do things. You're going to have probably some meetings, some annual meetings. You're going to have to keep a lot more documents. You're going to have to keep things like meeting minutes. You're going to have more of a board situation. It's going to be more, it can be, some situations more overseen by the states and stuff like that. It is a more complicated entity. And then an LLC is very simple. It's typically one member, but you can have multiple members, meaning multiple owners. And it's what's called a flow-through entity, meaning the taxes just kind of flow through typically just to you. And there's no real formalities. So you don't have to have meetings. You don't have to, keep meeting minutes. You occasionally, depending on the state you're in, you may have an annual filing just to say who the substantial owners are. But really, it's a very, very just simple entity to maintain. The main difference is really nowadays is what kind of business are you opening? A C corporation, an LLC is going to be for like probably 90% of businesses, especially probably for everyone that's watching today.
Yeah.
If you though are going to be having investors though, if you're going to be going out and getting investors or raising capital, so if you're going to be raising money, or you have a super complicated business that is going to be right away like a startup, they're right away going to bring on a ton of employees, we're right away going to be building it up really fast and making millions of dollars, that would probably require a C corporation.
Yep.
But other than that, an LLC provides plenty of protection of our personal stuff, right? It's going to provide that fence around all of our personal stuff.
So I normally said that to people that ask me, I want to open an LLC, I just ask them, why an LLC? And they don't know why. And I just said, just ask you why, because you could be 10% of people that do not need an LLC but need something else, or maybe you need a combination of LLCs and corps and whatever. I mean, that's why you have to sit down and talk, and that's something very important to do.
And you mentioned insurance too, because we received a couple of questions about that. And you, to build off of what you were finishing with, the fence that protects your property and an LLC, we always do recommend, and it depends on the industry, it depends on your level of risk, your business itself, but to look into insurance to further protect your assets. Insurance kicks in at different times. There are a lot of different types of policy, but it just adds that second level of protection. If you have employees, it could be really good. What if they drive for you?
Yep.
In the event of a car accident, or in the event of a building burning or losing inventory, there are lots of situations where you can get an insurance policy to further protect your business assets and prevent you from having to dig into your personal.
Yeah, no, that's great. And furthering what you were saying about, you ask people, why do you have an LLC? Okay, well, if we can get to the understanding that it's creating that fence around our personal property, they then can also understand insurance a little bit better, because then I say, okay, well, we've got your personal property protected, but what now about your business?
Exactly.
If you get sued, what happens in your business? And that is exactly what she was talking about, is that there are these things that can happen, and the insurance is there for you to sleep at night and know that your business isn't going to go bankrupt.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, we have a problem and we got sued. Several families after a vehicle of the company crashed with another 9 vehicles, all 9 families suing us. We got no insurance because of a long story that we can do a podcast about it. But so I was not worried about losing my house, my personal cars, or anything like that, because they were suing the business. That's okay.
But you don't want your business
exactly.
to wander.
But the business had real estate, the business has another vehicles, have equipment, has everything that could go away because you have no insurance. So what I learned is that, hey, you have to protect this. So, I mean, real estate cannot be in the risk of the operation of the business.
You gotta
Some
protect
assets can be out of it. So now I have an LLC with a lot of intellectual property. Now I have an LLC with real estate. Now I have LLC with these other things. But of course, you have to have insurance as well. So in order to structure right things, I think it's very important to learn about that, right? So,
or at least just be aware that there are those options.
Yes.
Because like for you, you didn't even know an LLC was an option at the beginning, right?
Exactly.
It's just about awareness.
Exactly. So what I want to say is that we have to have the opening to and the willing to accept that we need attorneys to help us structure this. And the same thing is that in Mexico, we don't have the culture of having insurance. So especially for businesses. So we need insurance as well, even in Mexico, but also, of course, in the U.S., it's like almost mandatory.
A lot.
And a lot of customers request you, okay, where's your liability insurance? Your garage keepers, your workers' comp, show me that you have protection, and you're going to protect me as well. Because in this relationship, I can get sued as well. So I want to get protected. So it's very important to consider that in your budgets. When you're making your budgets in your head, I'm gonna sell these in the States, and a lot of people do not understand that things are more expensive in the US for a reason. So labor cost is of course high, but at the same time, insurance.
You have those additional things.
And those kind of things. I mean, so you have to consider that you will have to invest more, and that's why something that you manufacture at $3, it costs $10 over there. Because there are some hidden expenses that we don't consider here in our own reality. So that's what we want to share, of course, in this podcast, in the events like what you just have, and it's very important to consider that. So there's so many different, as you said, the policies that we have to find the right one for our business and for our products or services. Because something that nobody considered, you have to have insurance as a lawyer.
Yes.
A CPA has to have insurance as a lawyer. Doctors have to have insurance. Yeah. So.
Yeah, these are very big upfront costs, but the payoff is later when something potentially goes wrong and you have your structure in place and you've had it in place for a long time correctly, or you have now, your insurance policies that can protect you later on. So it's always the proactivity versus reactivity is just very important from our perspective.
Yeah, and sometimes insurance, like just to go just a tiny bit further, insurance is sometimes not just for you to back you up if you get sued. It could just be that there was something accidentally happened in your business, or COVID. COVID was a massive one.
Yeah.
That there are certain types of policies, not all policies, but certain types of insurance policy that would pay out lost profits. Like if your business lost money, it will pay out that. So that's not a lawsuit, right? But it can help.
And also people was asking about, I don't remember the exact term, registered agents. Yeah, so I wanted you guys to go over that because for me personally, it was a new thing. I wasn't as familiar with that term. I was glad that we ended up making this event here so close to the US because it turned out a lot of people have business activities related to the US, some of them more here in Mexico, but they interact with the US, so they were more familiar with a lot of things you were saying, and they have, of course, better questions. So can you go into that?
Well, okay, yeah, you're gonna answer what is a registered agent, but I remember that you said something like, okay, somebody that has the ability to receive mail, and he's like, and what happened if he's never there? So I was thinking like, he was talking about himself.
Man, that was such that question made me laugh though, because I was like,
good questions to ask. It's funny, but
that gets a little complicated. Okay, registered agent though, it sounds like a big word, but it's a very simple thing. So every state just requires that you have a person available in the state and physically the state that can accept mail on your behalf. Generally Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, business hours essentially. Just can it's really going to be if someone sued or if someone went to sue you, they just want to be able to give somebody those papers on your behalf. So it can be a P.O. box. I don't know if you guys know what P.O. box is. They're
sure.
A non-physical address.
A lot of people here have their P.O. box for shopping. They just cross the border and bring their stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, people is familiar.
Well, you can't use a P.O. box for a registered agent. And you really aren't supposed to use an address that person wouldn't generally be available at. So a registered agent, it can be somebody you know, it could be a family member that lives in Texas. It can be a business that's in Texas. You can also pay a third party. Like a lot of times we get used as the attorneys. We act as a registered agent. Or you can pay a random third party. You can Google on the internet, hey, registered agent, and you can get one like that as well. So.
Oh no, I just had something to add and it escaped my mind. So yes, to receive lawsuits, also a big reason that you need a registered agent is to receive mail from the Secretary of State. Sometimes they will send you deadlines and notices of when, if you have an annual report as a corporation, when that is due, if you have outstanding fees, the IRS, if they send you mail. So you have to be able to receive the mail from your registered agent. So it can be a family member, but that family member needs to be present at the house a lot of the time in order to get you the mail, because the mail, important mail, you'll get a lot of magazines and junk, but the important mail has deadlines that you need to respond by within 30 days or 60 days or a few months. And I was going to say, registered agent information is public. It's public to the extent that someone has to go to the Secretary of State's website and search for you.
Oh yeah, it's on the internet.
Yes. So not everyone's going to be able to find it, or think about it. But if you don't want your, wife's information to be on a public database, consider that.
If you actually Google a certain company, a lot of times that address that's attached will automatically come up. And it's not just from the Secretary of State. There are other places that will then pull that address into. So yeah, very good point though. You do want to make sure that if you're using an address, that if you're using that family member, they're okay with their address being public.
Exactly. So the thing is that in Mexico, there's no like a registered agent. It's more, they call it legal representative. But the thing is that the legal representative of the company is also responsible for things. If you don't pay taxes, okay, let's go after the legal representative. Let's go. So that's why people are like, I don't want to be the registered agent. They're thinking that it's exactly the same thing in the US, but registered agent is just more like, as you said, just receive notices and inform the owners about things. But over here, nobody wants to be the rep, because you're obligated for so many things, taxes, lawsuits, and whatever. I mean,
Just
they
curious.
go after your personal things, actually.
Are they usually attorneys over here or no?
Not necessarily.
Really?
Not necessarily. So anybody, and normally the owner of the company is the registered agent. So that's why they got so confused, with those kind of things.
If they live in Texas, so say we've started a Texas company and they live in Texas, the owner, they can be the registered agent.
Yep.
They can technically use their home address. I wouldn't suggest that because I would not want my home address to be public, because I wouldn't want whether my clients are customers that day or whether my clients in the future to ever find it.
And we help a guy to open a company. They are from Mexico and they have a brother in Texas, and we put him as the registered agent. And then the other question was, because of, again, the experience in Mexico, he was like, okay, if I'm a registered agent, am I gonna be paying more taxes? The income of the company is gonna affect me personally or not? They don't understand things, There's so many questions about it. And no, you're just a registered agent. You are not even the owner. How come are you gonna pay taxes? You don't.
I just want to make a interruption where I was just thinking, like, we're gonna need to have more sessions with our members just to put this in place, because you know that all our members are planning on putting a feet in the US in the next 12 months. So yeah, they'll need more things to catch on.
I'm gonna need more employees.
And you can also hire some lawyers here in Mexico to help you remotely.
I would love that.
Yeah, we talked so much about it, about internships and stuff like that, and you got very interested on having help. So we will have to talk more about it, and I think we need many more episodes of the podcast. I mean, we just wanted to make like a quick recap of what we feel, what we seen in the event, but I think it was great overall. There's gonna be always opportunities to improve, but just to finish, and thank you for coming to Monterey. I hope you like the city, I hope you like the people, I hope you like the event, but if you summarize the event and your experience in Mexico in just one phrase or one word or something that kind of takes everything, what it will be?
Transcending for me. I mean, honestly, transcending. I know that's a big word, but
yes,
it's just been an experience of being able to go outside, especially my box. So Abrir here, she grew up in Texas. She's very bilingual. She has experience, I feel, more of your guys' Mexican culture than I ever did. So for me, it has been eye-opening just to see how there's just something that I can help out with that is so beyond myself.
Great.
I would say warm. The attitudes at the event, meeting people individually. I haven't ever visited Monterrey before, so this has been very fun and just, yeah, very warm in general.
I just want to say thank you guys for coming and trusting on the project. You'll see it will keep growing, so I hope your team grows too, because
It's gonna have to.
it's gonna be demanding for all of us. But I love the word you used, because that's what we are trying to do. Like, for real, we all want to transcend on our own points, and that's the point. Like, we're trying to make. And I don't know if you saw one of Edmundo's presentation where he was talking about it's not all about the money, and we need to impact and create more jobs and stuff. So that's what we'll want to do. So I'm so happy that we're like kind of connected on that point. So thank you again for that.
Gracias. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Y si tú quieres trascender con nosotros en Comprando América, ya sabes, puedes ir a comprandoamerica.com, unirte a nuestra comunidad de emprendimiento e inversiones estratégicas. Tenemos increíbles personas y profesionales como ellas, y muchos otros más que se están sumando, porque este proyecto está creciendo de manera increíble. Así es que comprandoamerica.com, síguenos, comparte, dale like, mándanos tus preguntas, y por favor ayúdanos con unas cuantas estrellas ahí en donde nos estés escuchando o viendo, porque eso va a ayudar a que lleguemos a mucho más gentes y juntos podamos crear un nuevo sueño americano.
Y bueno, por último, agradecerle como siempre a Mario detrás de cámaras
Y a todo el equipo.
A todo el equipo, pero bueno, en este caso nos acompaña Mario. Y iba a decir algo más, bueno, que nos comenten, que te escriban si estos episodios en inglés les gustan, si quieren más, si quisieran que intentáramos hacerlo con traducción simultánea. Creo que esos comentarios nos van a sumar mucho, ¿no? La respuesta de, pues, los expertos que tenemos son nativos americanos, entonces algo tendremos que hacer, encontrar la mejor manera
Correcto.
para hacer los episodios con ellos.
Exactamente. Y pues nuevamente a ustedes que nos ven y a ustedes, gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias.